picture, because when you talk about how to write rebuttal, you tend to say, okay, don't say this, don't say that. But then it's really the big picture. What is research? Okay, you have to really sort of understand you have to do good research, reasonable research. And so victory warriors win first and then go to war. Every time that I look at this, I like sometimes it's not possible. You definitely learn through going to the battles, but then battle research, and if you consistently get rejections, and you think a little bit, maybe I should change the topic. There's a lot of tactics, strategies that other people have written this. My article has a reference to a lot of useful information. So I will not go over all of them, but just to focus on the key point. The rebuttal is where for a lot of first-time researchers, you do have to respond to reviewers' comment, and this is relatively new, I would say. Lots of students would say, what's the point of submitting a rebuttal? No one will read this. A big mistake. People do read it, and so you do have to be very careful. All the common mistakes that I've seen in rebuttal is that knowing new information, very superficial. If the reviewers say, your work is not very novel, just simply say, no, it is novel. You're silly. I explained novelty in the introduction. They saw your paper, they don't like it, okay? So provide new information. If your solution is not secure, just simply say it is secure, it's not gonna help. Some other mistakes that I've seen trivialize reviewers' comments, and this is just very disappointing if the reviewer points out certain issues, and then your answer make it sound that the reviewer not understanding your paper. This is very bad. And I will go into this in more details. You are overstating your solution and not backing it down, okay? If people say you're overclaiming, you should seriously consider tone down your claims. But of course, if people say your solution is not secure, you're saying, okay, it is pretty weak, okay? That's not gonna help for a security conference. So you do have to choose when to back it down, when to stand your ground. And so our focus today is on three aspects. I want to talk a little bit about mentality, and this is really related to the big picture of the research. Why submitting rebuttal? What's going on? Why rebuttal don't trust you? Why reviewers don't trust you, right? Why they always treat you like a thief? They're trying to catch you. And so the strategies are just very high level. Who read your rebuttal? Why someone wants to champion your work? That is always is a hard work championing your work. Tactics is small things. Okay, if they ask this type of question, how would you answer it? So mentality is extremely important. And this morning we had a lot of exciting talks that talks about you have to understand why you do research, why you like it. Reviewers do read rebuttals. Those are the two real-world screenshots that I got from NeurIPS submission that the paper got rejected. But the reviewers said, NeurIPS, they are on the openreview.net. You see their comments instantaneously if they choose to be visible to authors. And they said that we appreciate clarification and so on and so forth. And some people say, I'm going to raise my score. Some people say, I still don't trust you. And so that's fine, but they read it. So people do read the rebuttal. Self-doubt, rebuttal is really test your confidence. It triggers self-doubt, triggers imposter syndrome. It's just really bad. You doubt yourself, you doubt your advisor, your collaborators, you doubt the world. Okay, you're like, well, am I doing the right thing? Maybe I should just watch TV all day. So you have to really understand this. Very, very common. It happens to you, happens to anyone. Happens to the most seasoned researchers. But it really comes down to, do you doubt yourself? It's your work. Do you believe it's worthwhile? Is it worthwhile to get published? That's really the key problem. Sometimes, I see my students, they are so calm after seeing rejections. I'm like, aren't you at least a little bit angry? And so this, you want to really energize yourself. You look at the review, they said this is not novel, this is not even secure. And then you ask yourself, who gets myself in this position? I did all the work, what's going on? So understand, you really need to have faith in your work. Otherwise, it's going to be bad with or without rebuttal. So all battles are first won or lost in the mind. And this is very, very true for research. So true, okay? It's just crazy. We're not in war, but then it's, I have all the war quotes in doing research. So you have to believe in yourself, and it's just to solve all the problems. You get hopeless rebuttals, hopeless reviews. I tell students that let's just submit rebuttals. Sometimes I submit because there are factual errors, and sometimes I submit because there are opinion errors. There are difference in opinions, and the reviewer believes that this area is done, solved, but I don't think so. So I just think because we're in a small circle, you let people know in case that they come across your submissions again. NeurIPS is just as insane. It has 12,000 submissions, and so I did a quick math. I feel like maybe they have 5,000 reviewers. I don't know. It used to be, the reviewers, they know each other kind of, we reach some sort of consensus. But in a lot of AI conferences, it's very different. So you see a lot of time that people don't trust you. They don't trust each other. The reviewers don't trust each other. So it's very hard for your champion to convince other people to raise their score. So it's very different. In cybersecurity, we all know that when the internet gets bigger and bigger, that all bad things happen. It's just no trust. Back in the 80s, people say internet, if you have some attacks, you pick up the phone and call someone, and then the attacks come from certain IP address. Someone probably made a mistake. And they have good faith. So things are different. You're living in your newer generation. You have more capabilities than older researcher. You're dealing with larger submissions, higher demand of publications. You can handle it. But this is different. This is it wasn't this explosive before. But there are real benefits. You get if you get asked to do a revision, most of the time that you will get in. Some people are lucky enough to get a decision flipped from rejection. But either way, go all in, okay? The rebuttal is where you go all in. Of course, you do research, you go all in, but rebuttal is extremely exciting because it's a short time period. You're like, oh, let's do it. And so I get very, very excited during rebuttal period. And so go back to the tactics and strategies. The reviewers want to hear, what do they want to hear? And so they certainly want to hear that you're going to produce a better version of work. If they say the presentation is hard to follow, don't argue with them. Okay, this is very simple to fix, and so just say you're going to fix it. Of course, if you say we're going to rewrite the entire paper, it's going to people say just submit in the next round. But then a lot of times the question is that the performance is not good. There's some real technical issues, and your solution is has not secure and so on. How would you respond to that? And of course, novelty. How would you respond to that? And the novelty is always very hard. And I get that comments all the time. This is the novelty. So I explained that the superficial response is very damaging, and then you feel like, okay, I responded. Okay, I had a response. They asked for a response. It's not very useful if you don't provide new information. New experimental data, the most important, the most convincing. If you have time, if you have the code, if your students, your lab mates, if yourself have time, I have some senior students who graduated, they don't have time to do new experiments, very bad. So before they graduate, I told them, would you please be able to do new experiments if our paper review got back in? And so you have to plan early. Typically, you have like a week, 10 days to respond. And so if in order to do new experiment, you need time. You need to prioritize as well. Which experiment is going to be a deal breaker? If it's a deal breaker, I'm going to do new experiments, whatever it takes. So it's extremely important, new information. Not every time, not all issues has to be addressed with new experiments. And you can push back, okay? It's not to say that you are not your own boss. You are your own boss. You can push back. Require teamwork. Be able to discuss your co-authors. In the first time that you get the negative reviews, of course that you feel like very ashamed and disappointed. You're like, okay, just figure this out by myself. Your co-authors want to help you, so plan ahead with them, okay? And it's important you read your reviews again and again. Sometimes people have typos, whatever. It's very hard to figure out what they're saying. But who would not want to do new experiments? If the rest of my talk is to say work hard, okay, it's not a good talk. I want to give you shortcuts, okay? So sometimes the data is not available. People say, compare with this and that, everything. So in a situation like this, how would you do? So those are the harder questions. But then again, if you see deal breakers that you can do an experiment to do it. Usenet security, this is a real, we have a pointer security solution that try to prioritize the protection of data pointers. And our solution, our prototype is built on an existing framework called ACM. It's address sanitizer. And so one of the reviewers says that why not use other data-oriented mechanism that we cited earlier in the paper. And so first of all, okay, you see this, you want to understand what do they want, okay? So this is for like a GRE, like the reading question, okay, reading comprehension. Do they want A, our evaluation with ACE? Do they mean that A, our evaluation with ACM is impractical, or B, we should test on a real-world solution that's different from ACM, or C, need to compare ACM with the existing defenses? And so we realize that the keyword is the actual, okay? So they think that ACM is not a real solution, like a real-world solution. They wanted to compare. We implement our solution on top of a real-world solution. So both A and B, that's what they mean. And so then our initial, one of my students, in the initial response, in the response draft, is that it's entirely a really superficial one, saying that even though we didn't test on real-world solution, but our solution will work perfectly on it. Okay, that is very tempting to say something like this, right? However, you have to be very, very careful, okay? And so one of the solution that reviewer refers to is for ARM pointer authentication. And our evaluation was mostly on Intel x86. And so a lot of the time, if you have a different architecture, really it's do not immediately exportable. And there may be ARM devices are also low power, low energy capability, and so there's a lot of other challenges. And so you just cannot immediately claim that it works on it, even though you have not tested. But then at that time, and we wanted to, if we have to, we can do new experiments, but then completely revamp this on another solution is really not possible. But I asked my student, is it possible for you to take a look to see, is it possible to do it on ARM pointer authentication solution? And it turns out that he got all kinds of bugs just to just to set up this basic framework. And so that's what we explained. We said that, we think our methodology can be generally applicable, but then this particular defense, we had a lot of trouble getting it running, is not as mature as reviewers thought. And so that, that's really worked. I think it's worked because our paper eventually got in. And so this is one example that if you don't have to redo our experiment or make big claims, or say things that you don't feel comfortable with. Providing new information is really the key. If people say how, and this is a real question from my other recent submission, which is still pending, it's an AI work. How do you compare your work with a large language model? Again, it's a reasonable question. The reviewer also wants us to compare with some paper. We look it up. It was published 1 month before the submission deadline. And so what does this mean? Okay, this is a very broad question. So in order to answer this question, you do have to figure out a whole bunch of things. Again, don't jump into superficial comments. You're like, this is, of course, it's easy to answer. Our work is more scalable than the large language, or our work is more accurate. Okay, it's very, very intuitive, very tempting to jump into those superficial comments that make you look good, and then you answer the question, but then you have to provide some information that's useful. Okay, and so what is a cool tool? Okay, suppose it's this large language model based solution called Cool. When it's published, is it available? If it's not available, you cannot compare it. What is it for? Lots of time that the solution is for something else, not your goal. It's for a different type of task. Find it out will help you answer reviewer's question. Run some simple tests, and so there's lots of things for you to do. It just don't be scared. Again, you have to have a cool mentality in order to figure this out. And this is all very simple. We're researchers, so figure this out is very simple. No need to say you're gonna beat this, you're gonna beat cool tool regardless of what in order to publish. You don't have to. Reviewers are reasonable too. So the most important question would be, can this tool replace your solution, right? So even though this tool in their paper doesn't say they solve what you want to solve, but then you should address, can this how is this related to your work? And so don't freak out. Okay, so freaking out is very, very common. Freaking out, and you have 10 days, freak out for a couple of days, and then feel very disappointed for more days, and so you lose the precious time. Don't underestimate reviewers' comments. The reviewers are more seasoned. I'm not saying that they are smart. You're equally smart, but they're just more experienced. So they see problems without having to do it. So this is a very common question. Will your solution handle situation A? Very common question. And there are a couple of choices. The most of the again, common mistake is say yes, it will handle it. Okay, so please don't do it. If it can handle it, then you provide some evidence. Doesn't have to experiments, but then you do have to have some evidence. If you cannot handle it, then you think very hard, why didn't I thought of this situation? You probably had some good reasons earlier on, and so recall that. Defend your solution versus admit flaws. And for cybersecurity, this is very common, and this will be applicable to your thesis defense, dissertation defense, presentation as well. So in cybersecurity, the first thing you should learn is security is relative. If you're not sure, go back to Fred Cohen's 1980s paper, Computer Viruses. cybersecurity is relevant because that attacker will be able to attack your system if they know how it works. And the Fred Cohen has a proof in the virus detection scenario. So in that regard, everyone has flaw. However, if it's a key flaw, if it's like deal breaker, then it's going to be a problem for you. Okay, so you don't have to defend your solution all the time, but then you do have to be very, very careful in situation like this. And so if it surprised me that I have to remind the reviewers all the time that security is relative. I don't want to remind people in rebuttals like this, but then if it's not a deal breaker, you do have to point it out. A common mistake I cannot emphasize enough. Some of the earlier articles by other people also mentioned. Ignore the champions question. So very quickly, the review, a paper will get 3-4 reviews, and typically during the discussion phase, the program chair or the area chair will say, so and so, do you want to organize the discussion? And usually that so and so would be the person who give you the highest review in the process, and that it typically is identified as a champion. Of course, the person may immediately say, no, I actually agree with the other negative reviewers about all the issues, so I'm not going to champion this, then immediately your work is not going to be very hopeful in the process. If there's a person, after seeing the negative reviews, and then still say, I still like this work, even despite all the issues, and then the rebuttals have solved all my concerns, and so I still want to support it. And so did the rebuttal answer your questions too? And so this is all the dynamic aspect of the paper review process, and that person is your champion if you have one. Your champion need answers. Your champion will read your rebuttals very carefully, your responses to them and your responses to other reviewers, especially to negative reviewers on the key issues. Most of the time, your champions see all the flaws in their paper, but then they still think it's worthwhile to be published. So don't think that you get a positive rating from this person that you can ignore all the issues. On the contrary, you should be very, very serious to address the champion's issues, so that it's called arm the champion. You give them power. I'll talk a little bit more about the herd mentality in the review. To explain that it's extremely hard work for champion to support your paper. So as a quick summary, and this is of course everything is changing. A lot of the things that is no longer applied. For example, word limit nowadays in open review in AI conferences, you don't have a word limit. You can write whatever. But I find out that those are the things. Plan early, prioritize new information, don't trivialize reviewers' questions. And so basically go all in, okay? And then channel your energy, your anger, frustration into energy. So before I leave, I want to just share some thoughts about the big picture in research. Because I think, one way or the other, you're going to figure out a rebuttal. It's not rocket science. Herd mentality, and this is real, and this is, for conference reviews, is just so damaging. If you see reviews that most of the reviewers are like kind of lukewarm. I'm not saying strong reject, okay? Lukewarm. I say this is, I don't. It's not very exciting. I don't see any flaws. But then it's just I can let it go. I don't have to. It's not over my dead body kind of rejection. So if you have a lot of that kind of reviews, it's going to be very problematic. We need to have energy going into this discussion. So you need a champion. Your champion is lots of time that dealing with those the challenges themselves. It's very hard to champion the work. In oftentimes, especially in cybersecurity, what I find out that if you nitpick on security issues, it can be really big, like Elisa said, people dying, and so the champion will say, no, we can ignore that, and then okay, the champion is not a very good security researcher, ignoring all the flaws. And so how big are the issues? And so a lot of times that the champions themselves are very, very pressured, because it's a lot easier to reject a paper and then be a rigorous reviewer than champion a paper with some flaws. So a lot of times that I see really good paper got rejected, really potential paper got rejected because no one is willing to champion it. And so in that regard, understand how the review works. And of course, this is where the program chair, area chairs should step in, making sure that all the reviewers really spend a significant amount of time to discuss the work. But then again, this is a very democratic process, so we respect all the reviewers' opinions. But then but I want to share this with the other, junior researchers as well as people who have done good work in research. You understand that your difference is actually your strength. And for a long time that I realized, how come my work is, people don't get very excited? And then I realized, they didn't see the picture that I see. They're from a very different perspective. I like to solve problems that have real world relevance and solve real problems. And there's also a line of research where people would make incremental changes to existing approaches. And so people would, when they see my work, they're like, I've never seen work that has been doing this style. So this work looks so foreign to me. And a lot of reviewers, they're very scared. They're like, whoa, what is this? It's an alien. And I'm, if it's an incremental kind of, people have done, if you change the scale of some solution from 1 to 1,000, that I'm familiar. But after a while, I realized this is actually what makes me me. So it took a while for me to realize that, and it is certainly imposter syndrome something to be familiar with. I have another article in Communication ACM to talk about how this impact research really requires you to be confident, believe in yourself, have faith in yourself. If you have imposter syndrome, it's just not gonna help. So that's it for everything that I want to share. Again, I will remember to post the official Communication ACM link so you can take a look. And the rebuttal is really something that I have a lot of fun with. Hope you all enjoy it too.